Hi, this is Maggie from Design Code Debug Repeat. If you're a beginning programmer, a beginning game programmer, a programming teacher, beginning data analyst, or if you just find this content interesting, please subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting lessons, tips, and cool programming stuff regularly. So today I'm going to talk about Python and about name resolution in Python. And I remember when I first came across this particular error in Python, I was pretty confused. I was used to programming languages in which you declare variables. So let me show you the error first by running this program. Okay, so it says unbound local error, local variable x referenced before assignment. Okay, now let's look at the program and look at which line of code is triggering that error. So I have a program, and in this program I am not annotating any variables. Annotating the variables would not make a difference, but because annotation is sort of reminiscent of variable declaration, I want it to be really clear when a variable is actually defined. So in Python, a variable is defined when it's on the left-hand side of an assignment statement. So in this program, I have 3 functions defined, but I also have some stuff in the global namespace. So I've defined at the top a global variable called x and assigned it the value 0. And then I've defined 3 functions, funky1, funky2, and funky3. And then I invoke those functions at the bottom of the file. So funky1 prints the global variable x. Funky2 has a local variable called x. Now this, of course, will shadow the global variable because we're defining a local variable x by assigning it the value 10, and then we print that local variable x. Now remember, when Python does name resolution, it first looks within the local scope, and if it doesn't find the name, whatever name you're referencing, whether it's a name of a function, name of a variable, whatever, then it looks in the enclosing scope. So in the case of a function, looks within the function, and in this program, then it looks within the module namespace. So for funky1, it didn't find x within the local scope, so then it looked within the file and it found x defined. With funky2, it finds x right within the local namespace. Now let's look at funky3. Funky3 prints x, and then it defines a local variable x and sets it equal to 10. So I remember when I was first learning Python, I assumed that print x would print this global variable x, and then when I assigned 10, I would be assigning to this global variable. But I'm not. I'm defining a local variable x. And so what Python, this line of code, print x, is the one that's triggering this error, local variable x referenced before assignment. So x is not defined until the line after I try to print it, and that's what's causing the error. So you will sometimes see people use the global keyword. Don't do this. I hesitate to even do it here. I have never used this keyword. So I'm going to say global x, and again, I've actually never used this keyword, but I believe that will solve our problem. Yes. Okay, so now when we're printing x, we have access to that global variable x, and then we assign 10 into it, but we never print it again. I think if we print x after funky3, we'll find that it's now 10. Now I'm assuming global looks in the enclosing namespace, but I don't even know. We're not going to use that. That's horrible. How do we solve this? We don't have global variables. That's how we solve it. So what I would prefer to do here is to have a function called main. Let's invoke these within main. Let's define x within main. That's where x belongs in, well, this is a pretty context-free program, but that's where x belongs here. Now funky1 needs x, pass it in. Funky2 doesn't need x, and funky3 also needs x, so pass it in. and that solves our problem. So that's an error that you might encounter when you're programming in Python, and if you're used to other languages, it might confuse you at first the same way it confused me. If it doesn't, good for you. But here's an example of how to solve the problem, and that is basically don't have global data. It's better if each function has a parameter list that shows us which data that function is using, and the function then returns any data that it's modifying. Or if we can't return the data, if it's something like an object or a list, something that is stored in the heap that is mutable, that we're going to change in the function, make it clear in the description of the function that it is going to change whatever is passed to it. So we just want to make it really visible what data is used by each function in the function header and also in the documentation for each function. When we have a global variable, it's unclear which functions might or might not be using that variable, and particularly in a very long program, this can lead to serious problems where you no longer know when that piece of data is being modified, and you can't trust that it contains what you think it contains, or as we say in Python, references what you think it references. And this is especially true if you're working on a project with other programmers, or if you're working on legacy code. And I know of many stories about global data in legacy code that wasn't what the programmers thought it was. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and again, please subscribe to the channel. Take care.